Hi, good evening. Well, it's evening now where I am. Welcome back to this YouTube channel of mine. Well, getting it started once again. So I guess I can say that I've got me as Hirsch Saha, of course, reporting from none other than Auckland, the metropolis of New Zealand. I can say that I have, well, good news and bad news. So good news is, of course, this channel is back on track, and this is the first video being released for almost 2 years. The last one was back in June 2024, today being 11th of April 2026. So good news is this channel is back on track. Bad news is I'm the one continuing it. So sorry about that. But hey, good news and bad news. I guess no matter what happens, you've always got the good and bad side to it, right? Pros and cons. So yeah, as I report, as I make this video here on Saturday, the 11th of April, 2026. Believe it or not, but we've got a cyclone Vanau or Vanu. If I don't think I've even pronounced that correctly, I need to check that, get my facts straight. But we've got a cyclone heading for us in New Zealand. It's already passed through Northland, and right as I speak, it's basically heading towards us here in Auckland. We've got some heavy winds. Of course, you might know if you're watching this video sometime down the track the effects of that cyclone. Hopefully, I'm still hoping that it's not too bad, not just on me here in Auckland, but on the rest of my my brothers and sisters, fellow Kiwis, fellow citizens here throughout New Zealand. Hopefully, it's not too bad, and certainly not as bad as Cyclone Gabrielle back in February 2023, as some of you may recall. But hey, I'm back, and geez, I know this might sound a bit negative, but it's certainly interesting times. I know when I released my last video back in June 2024, the Welcome to My Channel video, Talk 100. This, of course, is now Talk 101. When I released that last video, I remember saying, what sort of the uncertain world we were living in back in June 2024, and depending on if Trump was elected president that following November, how things could pan out and all that. Obviously, now we know that he is president. Unfortunately, the second time. Oh my God. And no, and of course, here in April 2026, this is just not even 2 months after he started the invasion of Iran and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and geez, the number of people that have been killed on all sides in that war, the infrastructure that's been destroyed, especially for Iran, their infrastructure for water and fuel, that so many people rely on, that's been destroyed. And of course, the international relations that have been ruined. America is more unpopular than ever before because of what Trump has done. And of course, the extremely high oil prices for the rest of the world, because 20% of the world's oil, at least today, passes through the Strait of Hormuz and it's closed. And, with the high oil prices, that's obviously impacting the rest of the world and, of course, slowing down economies all over the world, economies which were already in trouble, which were already contracting. Here in New Zealand, our economy was just starting to pick up after years of stagnation, but then this happened. It is seriously frustrating. And really, I don't mean to sound negative, but I've been thinking about it, and I was talking to my father about it not long ago. But today, it really is, in many ways, a dystopia. It really is, because regardless of what you're talking about today, 11th April 2026, regardless of whatever you're talking about, whether it's people's health and well-being, or climate change, or international relations, or the threat of nuclear war, or people becoming, sedentary and antisocial because of the internet and mobile phones, just or economies tanking, economies contracting, even how happy people's anger and all that, inequality, regardless of what you're talking about, it's all basically going downhill. It is all basically going downhill, and obviously that's not good. I so hope that things do start to pick up. Of course, I know they can never be ideal; they never will be ideal. But hopefully, things will pick up in the near future. If not the near future, maybe even the medium term. But no, basically, as I speak, it really is a dystopia in many, many ways. In many ways. Just earlier, a friend of mine, sorry, a relation actually, who's also Indian, he took his ex to the district court or the disputes tribunal because she owed him thousands of dollars, and which she said she would pay back, but after they broke up, she didn't pay him back. And he had evidence of it all because it was all the money had been given to her through electronic transactions, and he even had a WhatsApp conversation in writing where she promised to pay him back. And so he had the evidence. He took her to the disputes tribunal, and so he had the evidence. He had his debt collector at the disputes tribunal. He had his legal advisor. He showed up. His ex didn't even show up at all. And his ex, he is an Indian man like myself. His ex just happens to be a younger, very attractive white woman. And the facilitator at the hearing just also happened to be a young white woman. And unbelievably, even with all that evidence, she was like, no, you can't do this. She's much younger than you. She's 12 years younger than you, even though she's over 18 and therefore an adult, right? And the facilitator argued, no, you can't push this debt onto her. Sorry, I'm not, you know, I'm canceling. I'm not going to order. I'm not going to issue any court order for her to pay this debt, even though you got evidence, even though she agreed to it in writing. I'm not going to do that. No, you can't push this on a young white woman who is obviously the most delicate thing on earth, right? And what does that say about the opposite? An older black man, he's worthless, right? That's what it implies if you think about it. And I know I've touched on that sort of thing before in a previous video, but it's horrible, isn't it? And of course his ex was more than ecstatic. She didn't even show up to the hearing. She was ecstatic. She called him back saying, "Ah, I won, I won, I won. Yeah, white privilege, beautiful. I'm female. I'm white. I'm young. Of course I'm innocent. I can get away with anything. And they will always believe my word over yours." And she even went ahead as calling him the horrible N word. And Jesus, come on, in this day and age, I guess with that disgusting orange thing back in the Oval Office, what do you expect? All the hard work we did on improving race relations over the past 100 or so years, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Barack Obama, it seems like just in a 1.5 or one and a bit terms, Trump has just ruined that, and he's made us go backwards, hugely backwards. And of course, that is not good. But coming back to the topic, so yeah, this YouTube channel is back, and I'm back as well. And I've some people have told me that they really like the videos. I'd actually planned to not release any more videos, and that's why I stopped when I had that 100th one. I thought 100 was a good number. 100 has kind of always been my number, if you know what I mean. And I thought 100 was enough. And I thought, the saying goes, quit while you're ahead. Otherwise, it just becomes too many videos, and it becomes a bit of a mess, and the quality will inevitably go downhill. A bit like when a TV show makes too many seasons and it's past its use by date, if you know what I mean. So I thought I would leave it there, but no, some people said they liked the channel, they liked the videos, they found them very interesting, so they actually encouraged me to make more. So okay, I've actually already put plans together for another 100 videos, and hopefully I'll be able to complete that in the next year or so, just depending on how whatever life throws at me and the free time I have. But hey, we are back, and she's now 7.5 minutes into this video. I know I mentioned a few negative, depressing things. Unfortunately, a lot of life is negative and depressing. But and unfortunately, have you ever noticed the more truthful you are, the truth usually does hurt? One, it's stranger than fiction, and two, the truth usually is negative and depressing. But hey, let's move on from that. So now that we're back and going back to the actual title of this video, you must be wondering, it's like, man, when is he going to get to the title? I think he's named this video wrong. No, I haven't. So more comedy from my past. Okay, I think we all need to um, have our days brightened up. I think we all need something to smile and laugh at, especially in these times. So here it is. Okay, so more comedy from my past. Excuse me if some of these jokes come across as a tad inappropriate or unhygienic, if you know what I mean. But I remember, like, back at school, had a really misbehaving boy called Jonathan, and even at the age of 13, a teacher was like, "Jonathan, come over here," and he's like, "No, I'm coming over here." It's like, whoa, he actually said that. Um, I remember another joke. I've got these written down here on my phone, so I don't miss any or don't forget any, or I don't get them wrong. I remember another joke back in primary school when there was a boy called Jamie who had really dirty shoes, and then the teacher actually went up to him and just bowed down, took out shoe polish, and polished his shoes right then and there. And Jamie was like, "Oh, what service?" when the teacher polished his shoes. And then in the end, the teacher's like, "Hey, you owe me 50 cents for that." But it's like, "Ah, what service?" Man, these jokes need to get better, don't they? I remember in the same year in primary school, we had a boy called Sean, and as you know, there were so many different ways to spell Sean, and rather than the common say Shaun, his name was spelled differently, Sean, a bit like Sean Fitzpatrick, who used to head the All Blacks here in New Zealand, if I remember correctly, back in the late 90s. So his name was spelled as Sean, as Sean. And sometimes you would look at it, and if you're completely new to the name or that spelling of it, you'd be like, "Seen." And we used to have the joke, "Seen. Have you seen Seen?" Okay, these jokes really need to get better now. I remember in secondary school when we were doing economics, and one of my good friends, actually I still know him to this day, Michael, the teacher in that economics class was saying, "Okay, this week class we'll be studying budgets," and he's like, budget, you know. I remember on a school camp, I think it was on the way back home, a school camp which was in Tongariro National Park. This was in late 2001. And this is actually the one I based my book on, Tortured by Twigs, which is on my website, besttellingauthor.com, besttellingauthor.com. On the way back, I remember a boy, Johnny, it was like we were traveling on train back from Tongariro to Wellington, and we went through Featherston, and Johnny was like, "Oh my God, it's Featherston! Don't make eye contact." Just being like an odd little quaint town as it was. Another one, I need to be a bit careful. I say this one. We're in history class watching a video, and we're all watching the video. And a boy called Tim, we used to hassle him, call him Cletus because he kind of looked like a bit of a Yankee sort of redneck type. But his name is Tim. We called him Cletus, and I remember like he just walked in late, and another boy called Adrian was like, "If off Cletus," and and Tim is like, "Okay." He just walked back out again. It's like, if off Cletus, okay, he walks back out. I remember in the same history class when we, again involving Tim McRae. Oops, sorry, I better be careful of that. That's his full name. Hopefully, he doesn't realize it. But same involving him, Tim. When we had a test, and it was with another teacher who was facilitating the test, and he just seemed to be in a really bad mood. Something must have happened, God knows what. But when we were walking into the class, and I asked the teacher, it's like, "Oh, sir, do we sit in our usual spots, or because it's a test, and all the desks had been spread apart?" And he's like, "Just be there, And I was actually at my usual desk, and I was like, "Okay, I'll be here." And then Tim walked in and actually asked him the same question, and the teacher got annoyed, and he's like, "Oh, look, I don't think you should even be here, Tim. You can just get out." And Tim had a pad that he had put on the table, a refill pad we call it, and he's like, "Okay, I'll go. I'm going." And he started to take the pad, and the teacher's like, "No, no, leave the refill pad though." And Tim's like, "But it's my refill pad." He's like, "No, leave the refill pad and go." So he had to leave the pad. And Tim walked out, and I remember like at lunchtime, I was like, "Oh, yep." So it was a teacher called Mr. Hearn, and I remember like, "Oh, yep." So Hearn schooled himself a refill pad today. It's like, I don't know why he did that. He was so angry. He's like, Tim brought his own refill pad, and the teacher made him leave it there, and he kept it. It's like, oh, Hearn scored himself a refill pad today. Um, I remember once back in an art class in the beginning of secondary school, and there was a boy who was kind of a bit insecure, even at the age of 13. He was saying like, "No, no, I've slept with a girl," and another boy called Adrian's like, "Yeah, your mama." So we all laughed at that, even at the age of 13. I remember back in primary school when there was a teacher who ran the lost property for the school, and basically, there was another boy who I think claimed his shorts were lost, and but it's like the teacher who ran the lost property said, "Oh, but you have to pay to have them back. It's like 20 cents you have to pay to have them back because they've been with us for so long." And actually, no, you have to pay another 20 cents for how long they've been there. And the boy's like, "What?" And it's like, "Yep, you have to pay 20 cents." And the teacher's like, "Hey, 20 cents, pay 20 cents a day, 20 cents a day, and I could retire." Um, I remember actually the best teacher I've ever had, Mr. Cornish, Tremaine Cornish, who came from South Africa to New Zealand and taught me when I was in year eight, or Form 2, it was called back then, 1997, Form 2, at the age of 12. Yeah, he came from South Africa, and I remember in the math test, another teacher who worked with him just as a tease in the math test, he wrote a problem saying little Tremaine is saving up for a one-way trip back to South Africa. He gets paid, I think it was like 25 cents for each night loading the unloading the dishwasher. If it costs $2,000 for him to go back to South Africa, how long will it take him to save for that trip, being paid 25 cents a night? And it's just like little Tremaine is saving up for a trip back to South Africa. And obviously, Mr. Cornish, when he saw that, didn't like it at all. Um, so let me think. What else was there? The same teacher, Mr. Cornish, once when a boy called Mark was saying, "Sir, can you believe my own mother?" This is in the same Form 2 Year 8 class, when we were 12 years old in 1997. A boy called Mark was saying, "Sir, can you believe it? My mother forgot my own birthday. Can you believe that?" And Mr. Cornish was like, "Mark, if I was your mother, I wouldn't have only forgotten your birthday, but I would have hoped that you run away by now." Um, Another joke, I have to be a bit careful how I say this. This is a tad later on. This is, if I remember correctly, in 2010, when I was in my mid 20s, in 2010, and me and one of my best mates at the time were walking on the waterfront in Wellington by the Te Papa Museum, and there was basically a magician there doing tricks and a crowd of people around him. And I'll never forget this joke, and I'm probably not best to laugh at, but oh my god, my phone's going. Sorry, just cancel that. These things never, cease to disturb you, do they? We're now, as I say, we're now slaves to the very devices that were supposed to free us. But I remember the magician was doing one of those magic tricks, and he got a young boy to be the volunteer to help him with it. And it was one of those magic tricks where he says, "Okay, tie a rope around me as tight as you can, do as many knots as you want, tie it all around me as much as possible, and I guarantee you that I can get out of it in 10 seconds or less, or whatever that the time frame is." And the boy was tying the rope around him, and it just kind of got a bit awkward because he was like putting the rope going under the between the magician's legs and under his pelvis and all that, and it was just a bit awkward, and some people kind of chuckling a bit. I think the magician tried to make a joke of it, but it kind of backfired. I actually feel a bit sorry because there were children in the audience, and this is obviously not an appropriate joke for children. But the magician was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, watch it there, kid. That's my ass on the line. That's my ass on the line. No cock ups, okay? No cock ups. Hey, hey, your cock up, my ass." And we're like, Jeez, yeah, I don't think he meant to say that. It was like, your cock up my ass. And it's like, okay. And we just, yeah, it was pretty funny, but at the same time, it was awkward. And of course, yeah, it didn't feel that great for the kids who were present. Last, perhaps least, geez, I really need to improve on these jokes, don't I? They seemed much better when I wrote them down. I don't know what I was on at the time, but okay, I'll keep in mind to improve it for next time. I remember having a tutor back at university. This was when I was doing my first paper in commercial law at Victoria University in Wellington, and this was in 2004. And Daniel, there was an awesome tutor. I'll never forget him. And he was just saying that there was a case we were studying and saying that no wild animals were permitted on this property. And he was like, wild animals, that's open to interpretation. Wild animals, does that mean farm animals? Does that mean undomesticated animals? Wild animal could. I remember saying to him, wild animal could just mean not human. And then he's like, oh, wild animals. Well, sure they get wild at times. I'm sure they get wild. And and what else was he saying? Um, just trying to remember what else. He was saying like, yes, there was another case when I think one person robbed his brother, one brother to another. So one brother robbed his brother of money, and you're saying, oh yeah, yeah, I stole all your money. He's just making jokes like, yeah, stole all your money, and I spent it on fast cars and even faster women. He's just making that joke and stuff. So okay, there's some jokes that I have here, and hopefully, fingers crossed, they made you laugh. I think I need to improve on them quite a bit. Yeah, I certainly need to improve on that a lot. Maybe I should stick to my more serious talk videos. But hey, hopefully that wasn't the worst start. Hey, here I am, Hirsch Saha back. This YouTube channel is back. This is Talk Video 101. More jokes from my stupid phone's going. More jokes from my past, and hopefully you enjoyed it. And I'll be back as soon as I can with the next talk video. Feel free to go through my other previous talk videos. Likes and comments are always welcome. And feel free to pass the channel on to others. And of course, there's my website, besttellingauthor.com. Feel free to enjoy that. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I wish you all of you, each and every one of you, all the best for all to come. Thank you.